Everyone, again, thank you very much for joining me in a session for prayer, updates, Q&A, some Torah studying, and hopefully we'll go through this together. I must say this is very helpful for me to give these presentations and answer people's questions. Sometimes it's on the session, sometimes it's on WhatsApp, just what's happening in Israel. So feel free to open it. And I understood that people take a great value from this. So I'll try and do that every evening, God's willing. So I want to start by sharing my presentation. Okay, so I guess you've seen it. I sent this picture last Friday. It's a picture from a little park just next to where we live in Jerusalem. There was a soldier on vacation that was just sticking around and volunteering to walk around the parks just to make sure kids are safe and the parents can relax. It was very nice of him. So that's what's going on. Israelis keep their children, unlike Hamas and the Islamic Jihad, that basically use their children as human shield and as a propaganda tool. So that's really what's going on. Thank you, James. Thank you for joining. Last week I showed you a picture, and I had a few of the names, but it was not well organized. And now the families published the names of the children that were kidnapped. These are not the only children that were kidnapped. There's more, but this is one of the things I could find in order to show you the faces and the names and the age of these children, including 6 months old baby on the right field. So as you can see, it's just devastating to see these beautiful children and teenagers just kidnapped into Gaza, and we're praying for them. We're praying for the victims of this massacre that took place on October 7th, including this beautiful girl called Emily. She just stayed overnight with her friend, and she was murdered, and her friend and her mother were kidnapped to Gaza. So we're praying for these children and this beautiful girl that was murdered brutally by Hamas. And we're going to read Psalm chapter 7. I'm going to read it in Hebrew, and you're welcome to read it in English. I hope it's big enough, of course. שיגיון לדוד, אשר שר לאדוני על דברי כוש בן ימיני. אדוני אלוהי בך חסיתי, הושיעני מכל רודפי והצילני, פן יטרוף כאריה נפשי, פורק ואין מציל. אדוני אלוהי אם עשיתי זאת, אם אשעבל בכפי, אם גמלתי שולמי רע, ואחלצה צוררי ריקם, ירדף אויב נפשי וישג, וירמוס לארץ חיי וכבודי, לעפר ישכן סלע. קום אדוני באפיך וינשא בעברות צוררי, ועורה אלי משפט ציווית, ועדת לאומים תסובבך, ועליה למרום תשובה. אדוני ידין עמים, שפטני אדוני, כצדקי וכתומי עלי, יגמור נרע רשעים ותכונן צדיק, ובוחן ליבות וכליות אלוהים צדיק, מגיני על אלוהים הושיע ישרי לב, אלוהים שופט צדיק, ואל זועם בכל יום, ואם לא ישוב חרבו ילטוש קשתו דרך ויכונניה, ולא יכין כלי מוות, חיציו לדולקים יפעל, הנה יחבל אבן והרע עמל וילד שקר, בור קרא ויחפרהו ויפול בשחת יפעל, ישוב עמלו בראשו ועל קודקודו חמסו ירד, הודה אדוני כצדקו ואזמרה שם אדוני העליון. In chapter 7, in verse 17, we use a word that I'm going to refer to later, hamaso. which I think here it's translated to violence, I guess. Let me just see. No, I think it's supposed to be violence. The trouble they cause recoils on them. Their violence comes down on their own heads. So violence. One of the words for violence in Hebrew is Hamas, acting in violence. And it happened to be that this is the name of the terror group that we're dealing with, and we'll get back to that later. There's a special prayer that I'm not sure exactly in what year they started that. I want to say somewhere in the 50s, but I'm not sure. This is a prayer for the soldiers of the IDF, the Israel Defense Force. It's more famous as Misha Berach. Misha Berach is in Hebrew is the one who blessed. Okay, as you can see, it's the beginning of the blessing. He who blessed. So usually we say it for people that are either sick or just righteous, and we want to bless them. Or in this case, it's the opening of this blessing for the soldiers of the IDF. So it goes like this. He who blessed our forefathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, may he bless the fighters of the Israeli Defense Force who stand guard over our land and the cities of our God, from the border of the Lebanon to the desert of Egypt, and from the great sea unto the approach of the Arava, on the land, in the air, and on the sea. May Hashem, may God, cause the enemies who rise up against us to be struck down before them. May the Holy One, blessed is He, preserve and rescue our fighters, men and women, from every trouble and distress, and from every plague and illness. And may He send blessing and success in their every endeavor. May He lead our enemies under their sway, and may He grant them salvation and crown them with victory. And may there be fulfilled for them the verse, for it is Hashem, your God, who goes with you to battle, your enemies for you to save you. Okay, so again, for it is Hashem, your God, who goes with you to battle, your enemies for you to save you. Okay, so we of course don't trust just our weapons, we trust God to help us. Usually this blessing is said when we open the ark in the synagogue, and we're about to read the Torah. So usually this is when in the Jewish prayer, in a public prayer, this is when we actually say that. So just wanted to share this one with you. Before we start the updates, I just want to ask if there are any questions. Please, I don't want to, I guess some of you can't stay the whole time. So if there are any questions before we move on to the updates, then you're welcome. And there's a Bible study session towards the end. So guys, you feel free to ask. I'll just say that at the moment things are warming up in the north. I didn't follow too much, but what I understood is that of course there is a concern that Hezbollah from Lebanon will start another front. It's not a scenario that Israelis are not familiar with. We've been through this before, and this is what the Israeli army is supposed to be prepared for. And this is why Biden also sent the carriers in order to kind of signal them, don't start that. But who knows? I mean, we don't know if they are going to join or not. So things warming up in the north. If it escalates once the ground attack on Gaza Strip will start, then again we're going through tough days now. So it could be two serious fronts or not. It could be that the main front will just be Gaza and that's it. So we don't really know.
Itamar,
yeah, go ahead, Richard.
Yeah, I have a question. So I had a friend fly to Israel with donations of like socks and underwear that the soldiers were short of that. And then he just texted me, actually, he's in Israel now, saying that soldiers are short of ceramic vests and helmets. Is this true? Have you heard of this?
I'm not in the front line, so I don't know. But I just know that there are a lot of units that the amount of volunteers that joined is like very high, and also it takes time for some of the equipment to get there. So there is a. I've never been to infantry. I'm a trained combat soldier, but I was not a combat soldier in like what I actually did in the army. But it just logistically speaking, there is a few days or a week that the infantry gathers in certain points, preparing for the ground attack. And during that week, when the soldier, which is very close to the border, doesn't have his full kit, let's say, it's very stressful, of course. And but it just takes time. So I've seen pictures and videos and declarations of the IDF that there is no shortage and they are supplying all the units. But could be stressful for even 1 or 2 days not to have that. This is stressful. So I'm not sure. Just don't know. It's hard to say. I don't think so, by the way. But could be that there is some shortage here and there in some of the units. I don't think anyone is going to just go with his T-shirt into Gaza. So this is not happening.
Thank you.
Okay. Welcome. Anything else? Something in the chat. Just 1 second. James is asking, when I visited Israel with you, I would never have known that there were tensions. Yeah. Well, in Jerusalem, I noticed everyone, Jews, Arabs, and others, were at ease. Is there a noticeable difference amongst the population in Jerusalem? Good question, James. So there's always something going on under the surface. There are always like minor terror attacks that Israelis kind of learned how to live with. So that exists. But every now and then we have this escalation. Usually it's in a form of a military operation of a few days, few weeks. This one looks like it's going to be bigger. In a way, the policy of the governments of Netanyahu, their policy was kind of like to kick the can down the road in a way, kind of like prevent escalation now, just buy time, buy quiet, let's say, in all kinds of means. Yeah, so they just kicked the can down the road and now it's all exploding. Yeah, this is like an extreme example for that. From 2006, when we had the second Israel-Lebanon war with Hezbollah, that was like pretty serious one, 2006. And then since then until now, there were no full-scale attacks. It was more like operations, military operations. How are you coping? We are sending you love and strength. Thank you very much, Lorraine. I'm okay. I'm just at home with my child, my wife. We're doing things around the house with neighbors, helping neighbors. We have all kinds of stuff that we're doing here, but it's just unpleasant, of course. Hamas called for a special jihad last Friday. Did anything happen in Israel related to that? No, Chris. Nothing happened. Not only that, I would say that many Arab Israelis are kind of like rejecting this whole thing, and they had all kinds of surveys, and it seems like the sentiment is not with Hamas, but who knows? Again, it's surveying the Arab population in Israel is not the easiest thing to do. I assume that there are many people that are disgusted by what happened and condemn it, but many of them are quite quiet. They don't want to express that publicly in a very strong manner. There are exceptions, of course, but they live in a society that doesn't allow that because they grow up with this ethos that since 48 Israel basically occupied their lands and therefore Israel should be punished and eliminated, and etc., etc. So it's really what filled the marrow of their bones for so many years. So they just can't say anything against that. They can be quiet or condemn both sides, kind of. That's usually what they do, but they cannot really be too direct about it. And again, there are a few exceptions of Arabs that actually condemn it publicly. I know you have personal interaction with Palestinians. Has this impacted any of your relationship? No, I actually texted my good friends, and we spoke. My two good friends, Arab friends, just last Friday, and also they are shocked by what happened, and yeah, no, it doesn't affect. These are like actual friendships, so they are really disgusted by everything that happened, and yeah, okay. So thank you everyone for joining. We're still in the session, okay? We just had the first round of Q&A. If some of you had to leave, it's fine. But what we're going to do next, I'm going to continue with the actual update, then another round of Q&A, and then I hope you'll stick around for the Bible study. Okay, so I wanted to share with you a few things that I'm finding online as I every now and then keep myself updated, and things that I think reflect sentiment of the Israeli society. So this one says in Hebrew, for all the mothers that feel that they don't do anything and they're just with the children around the house, and you can see the mother preventing all the evil hands kind of from approaching, or the scary stuff from getting to their children, and keep the smiling face. There was an initiative just today. I got the ad for it. Initiative to have bedtime story for parents. It's an initiative, and they're supposed to do it like around 9:30 or 10 p.m. A bedtime story for parents that are, just dealing with the day-to-day life under a very strange reality for children. They don't have school. There is like scary stuff going on. Either the father or the mother, one of them sometimes is in the military and they are serving, or in reserve and they are serving now, so they're not at home. So there's a new initiative to have bedtime stories, and kind of ease the tension of the parents at the end of the day. So yeah, so of course, for in this case the mothers or the fathers that are at home, that's what this one is about. So a very interesting moment this week when an officer came to a very famous yeshiva, Hebron Yeshiva it's called, and actually he's a yeshiva student himself. I think his father or his grandfather was actually a teacher in this yeshiva, Hebron Yeshiva, and he was actually telling them that there's a great distress now in Israel, and many people died, and he was just explaining this whole situation, and he explained the importance of service in the army, and he was. This was a very strange moment for the yeshiva students because he was uninvited, basically, and ultimately they asked him to leave. But it just goes to show you the tension in the Israeli society between the ultra-Orthodox, that the vast majority of them aren't serving in the army, and the other part of the population that serves in the army. So there's a lot of things to say about it in regards to the Jewish law. Maybe I should speak about it at some point. The Jewish law, halacha, and serving in the army are very interesting things to say about it. So yeah, that's unusual moment that happened this week. I wanted to point out, I left it in Hebrew. It actually says geopolitical review. What I just wanted to say is that what is going on here is that the terror in Israel will ultimately get to other parts of the West. These are the type of things that Israel was saying since, I guess, somewhere in the 70s. And clearly the world experienced a lot of terror attacks by Islamic radicals, and that's basically the war that we're fighting right now. Hamas is not just a local organization here. Hezbollah is not just a local organization here. They have their branches in other parts of the world, whether it's the Middle East, Europe, America, Latin America, and they have all kinds of collaborations going on, drug cartels, etc., etc. So this is the kind of things that affect the world as a whole. So the fight that Israel is going through is not just a local fight; it actually impacts other parts of the world. This is something that this is an organization in Israel called Stand With Us that explains also what's happening in Israel with the conflict and politics and others. They have very active social media accounts. So if you are interested in following that, you can consider it. Stand With Us. For context, 1,000 Israelis is the equivalent of 34,000 Americans, 22,000 Brazilians. It just gives you the proportion of how many people were killed. So this is the amount of people that were murdered and massacred basically in one single day. So this is for Israelis. This is 10 times kind of 9/11, as I texted that to you last week. There are all kinds of I guess not ads, but posts that just trying to conceptualize what's going on here with Hamas and what they did, the atrocities that the people in Gaza envelope went through and still are, basically, those who are kidnapped. So on the top, you can see the flag of ISIS. Then on the lower part, just more like the flag of Hamas, basically. Then on the left, the Nazi Germany's flag. This is really the identity of this organization. That's their declared purpose, is to annihilate the Jews, at least from Israel, or at least, and this is like the minimum part, to annihilate the Jewish sovereignty, which in practice means to annihilate the Jews. We don't accept the sovereignty of the Jews, but they can live under us as second-class citizens. Yeah, right. Like no one's going to go back to what my family experienced in Yemen or Morocco. So this is basically the ideology of these organizations, these terror groups. So that's one example for that. You can see other things that were found over here. They actually found an ISIS flag in one of the kibbutzim over there. They found Iran flag as well. So it's pretty, like, there are fingerprints all over the place that these organizations are deeply involved. Hamas in the middle over here, you can see with the swastika, and Lloyd Austin, Secretary of Defense, says, "I know a lot about ISIS, and the Hamas massacre is worse than I saw with ISIS." So this was really bad. So again, I don't want you to scar yourself with the atrocities that happened. I think people should expose themselves, at least adults, of course, not young children, expose themselves to these atrocities to really know what happened, and then formulate their own approach to it, to this subject. But I could totally understand if people don't want to do that to themselves. So that's it. A little bit of humor. So on the left side, you can see this girl, and it's a very funny TikTok account of a Israeli of Russian descent. And basically what it says on the top, it says, "A family of Russian, meaning Russian Jews, lighting Shabbat candles for the first time." So clearly in the Soviet Union, religion was oppressed, not just Judaism, but all religion was oppressed. And many of the newcomers, the Olim, the newcomers from Russia and the former Soviet Union, many of them were not particularly religious or didn't grow up with religion at home, and many of them are quite ignorant of their faith. Not all of them, but many were quite ignorant of their faith until at some point some of them decided to study it and we have many Russians, of course, that are religious people, but in this case, it's a family of very secular Russian descent, and they've never lit a Shabbat candle, so they were just doing their best, and it was a very funny video, and people were cheering to them and said, "Yeah, Hashem loves you, God loves you because you're doing the effort, you're trying, it's amazing." So many people encouraged them to keep doing that, to keep lighting Shabbat candle. So again, in times of distress, and this is not a new thing, it's all over the Bible, we see that the children of Israel learned how to call to God once bad things happen. And this was again, in the dark times that we're in right now, and we're going to have still many hard days coming up. This was a nice moment of authentic religious expression on one side, and also a kind of like a clumsy attempt to practice Judaism by this family, but everyone were like cheering for them for what they did. So that's something that I want to share with you. And on the right side, this is a friend of mine. She was volunteering, packing all kinds of packages for the soldiers, and her shirt was kind of destroyed because of this, line of how it's done. Anyway, at the end, she's writing, "We have the cutest army in the world," because as like the songs that we were singing as we were packing these packages, where it was Am Yisrael Chai, it's like a very famous song. Then the world is a narrow bridge, but what's important is not to be afraid. Okay, all kinds of very famous Jewish songs, and then we also sang the opening song of SpongeBob. Okay, so just imagine the situation that people are packing for soldiers, and there are some soldiers in it, and everyone's like cheering and singing in order to raise the morale, and then they're also singing SpongeBob. Okay, so this is these are the kind of little moments that are happening in Israel right now as they are trying to support the soldiers. I wanted to, these are both are in Arabic, both pictures. You can see some Arabic over there. I want to demonstrate the difference between the Israeli army and Hamas. On the right side, what you see here, this is what was thrown from, I guess, some airplanes to different areas in northern Gaza and Gaza City by the Israeli army. Basically, it says to the population, just go south because there is a ground attack coming your way. So again, the whole point here, of course, is to save the life of civilians. Here on the right side, you can actually see the logo of the Israeli army. In Arabic, it says the Israeli army, the Israel Defense Force. That's actually what it says here. Then they explain exactly what to do, and there's a map. Just go south, go further south. On the other hand, over here, this is one of the mission papers, I would say, that Hamas terrorists actually got on their way from Gaza to all these kibbutzim. So I read Arabic, I speak Arabic, and it actually says so to cause as much damage and as many casualties as possible. It says that in the over here, like the mission of this, I guess, platoon. You can translate it. Is really that's what it says, to cause as much damage as many casualties as possible. And we're talking about civilians. We're not talking about the military post. They actually speak. I think it was kibbutz alumim. So anyway, it was direct mission to kill as many civilians as possible. Sometimes now I think they're trying to play it back in a way and say, no, we didn't mean to kill civilians. They just happened to be so many civilians on our way to the military post. Of course, this is just propaganda. This is really what they were up to: massacre and butcher and terrorize the Israelis by these horrific acts of violence, and that's what terror is all about, to just inflict this fear from these attacks, and now, of course, Israel has to respond. A few more things before I open it again for Q&A. There are all kinds of pro-Palestinian demonstrations, and you'll see all kinds of pro-Palestinians speaking on social media and maybe in your area. This is a friend of mine, Daniel. In Harvard, people are for the demonstrating for the Palestinians. Harvard out of occupied Palestine. Okay, so he saw that as if chickens are protesting for KFC, chickens for KFC. Okay, so this is pretty much what is happening. Okay, how can you be a liberal Westerner supporting the Palestinian cause and this genocidal cause of Hamas? It's just hard to explain. Okay, so that's about this. Over here, it just goes to show you how a safe room that got a hit very close, and some shrapnels actually go through the metal doors and metal windows into the room, and it just goes to show you that although Israelis are in shelters and there are all kinds of ways to protect ourselves, these are Iron Dome, of course, we still civilians, I mean, are still targeted and can still get hit. So they basically trying to say that you have to lie down when you're in the safe room. Just lie down, because even if you're standing up, shrapnels can go through the window. Almost done with the updates. I just want to show you two women. This gentleman, David, he's celebrating his wife that she's a doctor, and now she decided to volunteer as a doctor in Gaza envelope to help and support the soldiers. So that's one lady. The other lady is Captain Yuval Duek, that was just jumping out from her bed with a gun and with a car, just went to save life, and she's still alive, and she actually managed to kill a few terrorists and then fall back, and they reorganized their attack. So again, these are the type of people we have here. Now you see her with vest and her full all her weapon, but she was just going out with her pajama and a gun. Over here, there's another a post that was talking about the battalion of Karakal. It's a battalion of mainly women, combat soldiers, including women in tanks. So they managed to kill dozens of terrorists. So the Israeli army famously has a lot of girl fighters, women fighters, and I just wanted to share these two with you. Some propaganda. This is propaganda of Hamas, showing the Israelis as cowards. And on the other side, kind of like what I talked about earlier, the Israeli soldier is protecting the women and children which are down in a shelter. The opposite is that Hamas launch rockets from a sheltered place and uses women and children to protect him. And that's it for now. Yes, okay. This is it. So if you guys want to stay for the Bible study, then I'll be very happy, and I open it again for Q&As. You're most welcome. See that there's something on the chat, sorry. Chris is asking, why do they not serve in the army? I guess you are talking about the ultra-Orthodox. They are exempt because of the political constellation in Israel for just somewhere in the 80s or late 80s maybe. It became clear that if you want to form a coalition, a functioning government with a coalition of 61 plus parliament members, then you need the ultra-Orthodox on your side, and it was a very easy arrangement for governments from the right and the left to use the ultra-Orthodox because you just have to throw some money at them, give them their budget, and then they are supporting whatever your agenda is, generally speaking. Okay, so this allows this situation to grow over the years, let's say over the last 20 or 30 years, and they just get kind of like exempt. And this exemption, like them being exempt, was always in the midst of a public debate in Israel. It's like just not fair. Like they can do some kind of service maybe in hospitals and whatever, in their communities even, but they just value the studying of the Torah more than anything else, and they just want their young men to study Torah and to focus on that, and not to go to either the army or any other kind of mandatory service, even if it's a civil service. So I'll just say that legally speaking, the Supreme Court always ask the government, okay, you have to, no problem, if you want to exempt them, it's okay, just you have to pass a law, like an actual law about that, to organize that, and this was never done. And the temporary arrangement that was going on for, I'm saying temporary, it was not that temporary, it was for many years, just expired a few months ago, I think like somewhere in last summer, so 2 or 3 months ago. And on this session of the parliament, meaning from October onwards until somewhere in December, they were supposed to pass some kind of law to make the exempt of the ultra-Orthodox a legally like a legal thing. And it just happened to be that when they were supposed to pass this legislation, this war started. So I don't know what's going to happen, okay? But I know that, first of all, part of the judicial reform is in order to allow that to happen, okay? Allow this discriminatory law that says if you're secular, you have to serve in the army and endanger yourself, and if you're a traditional Jew but you're not ultra-Orthodox, you have to go to the army, you have to serve 3 years and then endanger yourself maybe, and then there are ultra-Orthodox that no, they don't have to endanger themselves, and this is discriminatory in the law, okay? So part of the judicial reform was to enable that. After this war, I'm not a prophet, but I assume that this will be very difficult thing to pass, okay? So Chris, that's for your question. What is the situation of the kidnapped as far as the finding of killed hostages that were found and those that are still not found, as Hamas tried to negotiate lately and given material or phone calls from hostages? So there's phone calls, I don't think so. No, I don't think any. No, that didn't happen. Not that we got any report of that. But there are like all kinds of messages that if you release the, I guess like 40 women, Palestinian women that are arrested and that are part of Hamas, if you release them and few minors that are imprisoned, like 100 minors, then we'll release the babies, women, and elderly from that were kidnapped. Okay, this is like, it's a message, but I don't know if it's going to go through because Israel is very busy with the military operation, the ground attack, and the part of the ground attack is actually to gather intelligence and find those who were kidnapped. So I don't think this is going to happen, but again, I'm not a prophet, I'm not sure. Hey, Gabriel, thank you very much. Thank you very much. 2 weeks from now, that's awesome. Thank you, Gabriel. Okay, good. Anything else, my friends? If you want to ask, welcome. And after that, I want to go to the Bible session, the Bible study session. Okay. So again, I'll open it again for Q&A. Oh, Rachel is asking, Why did it take so long for the Israeli army to respond with force after the invasion? It seems as if there were hours before the IDF responded. It's not accurate because there were soldiers that responded, just that there were not enough soldiers on the border. So now we know that some people responded minutes after the attack started. But again, just not in the right amount of numbers. We know now, for example, that there were combat helicopters that were hovering above this area and were killing terrorists about an hour after the attack started, something like that. So there's, on the tactical level, there's a lot of things that we just don't know yet properly. So I prefer not to. I just don't know the full picture. So these are like the little bits that I understand that we know now. Okay, Richard, I hope I answered that question. Again, just not enough battalions, not enough people on the ground in front of Gaza during that Saturday. Okay, so I guess again I'll have another round of Q&A, so just stick around. Let's move to I want to share with you two not chapters, just a few passages here and a few passages of next week's portion of the Torah. Okay, so last Shabbat we were reading the book of Genesis, and what you see here is a part of that portion of the Torah that we read, the parasha we call it. Very famous, of course. Adam made love to his wife Eve, and she became pregnant and gave birth to Cain. She said, "With the help of the Lord, I have brought forth a man." Later, she gave birth to his brother Abel. Okay, now the continuation of the story you are familiar with. Abel is a shepherd, Cain is a farmer, and now they're giving offerings, and Cain's offering is not well accepted. When it's not well accepted, then the Lord said to Cain, why are you angry? Why is your face downcast? If you do what is right, will it not be accepted? But if you do not do what is right, sin is crouching at your door. It desires to have you, but you must rule over it. Okay? So God is noticing that Cain is upset. And if he's upset, then he could do something wrong, morally wrong. Okay? And he says, yes, sin is just behind the door, but you can rule over it. I'll just say that because some of my viewers are Christian, this is, of course, this whole approach of sin is crouching at your door, but you can resist it. This is not the most Christian, I guess, dominant teaching, but in Judaism, this is like, that's what the Jewish approach is for sin. You can always resist sin, and you can rule over it. So just a little thing over here. My focus is actually on verse 8. So let's read that. Now Cain said to his brother Abel, "Let's go out to the field." While they were in the field, Cain attacked his brother Abel and killed him. Okay. I have a problem with this translation. Okay. Let's go out to the field and all that. So I'm reading it in Hebrew, and then I'm going to translate it and kind of make sense out of it. And I'm going to add a little bit of the classic rabbinic interpretation. So stay tuned. Vayomer Cain el Hevel Achiv. And Cain was speaking to his brother Abel. Okay. Vayehi beyotam basadeh. And it was when they were out in the field. Now the field in general is like a code for a place of danger, a place that bad things can happen. Vayakam Cain el Hevel Achiv. And then Cain stand against his brother and killed him. Okay. So the situation is that Cain is speaking to his brother, and it's happening in a field. And then for whatever reason, Cain has to stand up. Okay? Vayakam. Vayakam means to stand up. why do you have to stand up? Like, where were you so far? Aren't you standing? So one of the rabbinic understanding of it is that Cain tried to kill Abel, and Abel already attacked him back, and Abel was strong enough to knock him down and was actually lying above him, about to kill him. Like Abel was about to kill Cain. Okay, listen again. Abel was about to kill Cain, and then Cain said something to him. And this is not in the biblical text, but it's in the Jewish rabbinic midrash, it's called. The rabbinic, let's say, teachings. It says that Cain asked Abel, if you kill me, what are you going to say to mom and dad? Then Abel said, okay, I won't kill you. Okay. Then he stood up, and as he stood up, Cain also stood up and killed Abel. So that's what was going on. Okay, so I'm trying to give you a kind of a different picture of what is the story all about. Okay, so one of the problems of, or almost people would say the wrong thing that Abel did is that if he's attacking you and then he pretends to have the same values like you are, okay, you cared about not killing him because you care about what mom and dad will think about you. If you give up killing, if you don't want to kill him because of that, then this is wrong, because Cain was about to kill you, and Cain doesn't have the same values as you have. And the fact that you did not retaliate, you did not kill him, is actually something wrong that Abel did. That's why he was killed. He was naive. Okay, that in a nutshell, that's the point. Abel was naive about his brother, and he died because of him being naive. So whenever we are talking about enemies, about wars, okay, we have to see the values that guide not just the army, but also the society of the enemy. And if their society worships death and aspires to be martyrs, and that's really a major component of their national identity, to wipe the Jews, to eliminate the Jews, to not allow them have self-determination in their land. If that's their values, then you must not apply your value system onto them. Okay, so some Westerners, I guess, do that almost as an instinct. They look at a conflict, they say, oh, they are stronger, they are weaker, so probably the weaker are right for whatever reason. Or they would say something like, okay, they look miserable and poor, so maybe they are the underdog and they're right. But that's not the whole, that's just a small part of it, a small part of the story. I kind of showed you earlier how the Israeli army calls the people of Gaza to leave different parts because Israel have to retaliate, Israel have to kill the terrorists, and Israel has to move forward. And we're trying to protect, of course, civilians' life. And on the other hand, we know that Hamas not only brainwashed for so many years their population to towards martyrdom, they actually force people not to leave these areas and cities and neighborhoods, so that there will be maximum casualties, civilian casualties. Okay, so if this is their value system, then we should judge them according to their value system and not according to our value system. Yeah, so this is, again, a little message from Cain and Abel. This is not so much, I just want to show you this one word, okay? So let me just fix that, okay. So in the book of Genesis chapter 6, we're going to read it in the coming Shabbat. We have these few verses. This is the account of Noah and his family. Noah was a righteous man, blameless among the people of his time, and he walked faithfully with God. Noah had 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Now the earth was corrupt in God's sight and was full of violence. The word for that is Hamas. Okay, Hamas is exactly the name of that terror organization. again, that's the Hebrew. Okay, I'll explain the Arabic in a moment. God saw how corrupt the earth had become, for all the people on the earth has corrupted their ways. So God said to Noah, I am going to put an end to all people, for the earth is filled with violence. Again, Hamas. It's like two of these words at the same like paragraph. It's quite rare. Because of them, I am surely going to destroy both them and the earth. So Hamas, again, in Hebrew, it's a word for violence. And in Arabic, it's actually an acronym. Okay? Hamas, it's in Arabic, is Harakat Muqawama Islamiyya. It means a movement for Islamic resistance. Okay, it doesn't have the Palestinian in it, but that's what it's called. A movement for Islamic resistance, and that's the acronym they chose for themselves, Hamas, and that's the name of this terror group. Okay, so that's a little bit of our Bible study. If there are any questions, whatever you guys want to do, you're welcome. You can open your microphones, of course.
I've got a question. So I've seen an interview with an army spokesman. I don't know what, maybe yesterday or the day before yesterday, when he was saying that the alleged attack on the fleeing civilians in Gaza might have been, you know, Hamas itself or booby traps that they put there, and that they're investigating it, and that there was no activity that the army had in that area at that time. So is there any progress? And because it's, of course, it's all over the media, you know, that IDF is attacking the people that they told that they should evacuate, and now they're attacking them on the way that they are using because they were told to do so. So it's already going in this direction, and I was just wondering if there has been any improvement to show what kind of explosion it really was. And
I didn't hear about it, I must say. So I guess this is type of coverage. I'm not exposed to the news like 24. I don't really watch the news. I just have things that I see on social media, a few sources, and that's it. Otherwise, I'll just probably go insane. But I didn't hear about that. It could be that Hamas did something like that. It doesn't. I can't rule that out. Like it could be that just not even deliberately. It could be just they have all kinds of booby traps and this and that in different parts that just exploded and like accidentally. It could be that. I really don't know. But I don't rule out either that they did it deliberately, just again for their propaganda. I can tell you that the Israeli army doesn't target civilians. It just doesn't happen. If the Israeli army shoots a certain building, historically speaking, okay, they have these knock bombs just to warn the people that are in the building to go out. Sometimes they call to the phones on this certain building and say you have to evacuate. They do a lot in order to prevent people from dying, like civilian casualties and any collateral damage. And you can see that. You can see that in dozens of movies, in videos. Sorry, dozens of videos that the Israeli Defense Force release of the conversation between the commanders. No, there's like a man over here is not involved. There's this, there's that. Like they kind of wait for the right time so that he won't get hurt from the explosion. I must say that Israel is going to be less sensitive. So I do think that we're going to see more civilian casualties simply because the terrorists are hiding in civilian buildings and population in the population, in the hospitals and in the mosques, etc., etc. So I'm pretty sure we're going to see more civilians getting killed, but it's not because the Israeli army target them. The Israeli armies just don't won't be as sensitive as it used to be to the human shield that the terrorists create around them. So that's what I think is going to happen. And no one is like saying, "Oh, just bomb these civilians waiting in line in Rafah border or whatever with Egypt." Like, I don't know. I don't think any of that is going to happen. So if I'm not familiar with that, Chris, but if you can text me the article or whatever on WhatsApp or over here maybe on the chat, then you're welcome to do that. Just didn't read anything about it.
And Tamar, this is Emily Clues from Michigan, and we also heard the same report on CNN, but they decided that pretty much that it could not have been the Israelis that did it, that it was something, a mine or something that the Hamas people had maybe forgotten about, but that it was not something, it did not come in from the air. So it hasn't been brought up again at all on our television programs, that incident.
Okay. No, again, I it could be just an accident from Hamas's side. I reminded there was just like last year there was a military operation against the Islamic Jihad, a very short one, maybe like 2 or 3 days, and during that time, like the Palestinian civilians that were killed during that time were actually killed because of a rocket that was launched towards Israel, but just hit in Gaza. So this is like just accidents that could happen. Anyway, they're very involved in their civilians and they're using them as human shields. So you can just see that happening, and they will just automatically blame Israel for whatever reason. Not for whatever reason, like they do it for their propaganda, but no matter what the reason is, they will still say, no, they are martyrs and Israel killed them. Okay, so you don't have to believe that because it's just not true. And maybe for another time, if it is too much today, but what different groups are there within Judaism? Different groups. Different groups. So just wait with that, Chris, and I just want to go through a few other things. As ever, thank you for these updates, and I love your Bible studies. Welcome, Lorraine. Take care. We're getting similar reports on Sky in England. Thank you. Okay, groups in Judaism. So Orthodox, and in America there is conservative and Reform Jews. Okay, in Israel we don't really have. We have Reform and conservative, but not a lot. I want to say 5 to 10% maybe. I think that's the right number. 90% of the Israelis are what we would call Orthodox, even if they're not very practicing Judaism, they're still, referred to Orthodox Judaism as their Judaism. I hope it makes sense. So again, I'm not the most observant person on earth, but I am still an Orthodox Jew. I don't see myself as a Reform or conservative Jewish person. So take these 90% Jews that are referring to the Orthodox Judaism, meaning rabbinic Judaism, basically. And within them, there are, I want to say, 10% are ultra-Orthodox, meaning very, very observant. And they are divided to many, many sects. We're talking about 1 million people, and they're divided to, I want to say, 130, 150 sects, subsects, like within these 1 million people. All these Hasidic groups, Sephardic, Lithuanian, there's like a lot going on over there. And then you have the vast majority of Jews that are just, some of them are more Sephardic traditional people like myself, or like I'm half Yemenite. So this is like just more traditional people, but not necessarily very religious. There's many secular Jews that are just still, they care about, they know of the holidays, they will celebrate the holidays. Many of them will do a kiddush for Saturday, but they're not very observant throughout the year. So Chris, I hope I answered your question. Yeah, that's it. Hey, James. Great to see you.
Yeah, how you doing? Everybody hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. My take on this is that basically the Hamas wants to do this. They want to inflict death and pain on the Israelis, but also on their own people in order to, I guess, maintain the hatred for years and years to come. Half the population, I think they said, of Gaza are children. So if you're a child growing up and you see such horrible things happen, another, your neighbor attack you for whatever reason, whether it's justified or not, you're going to always maintain that hate. And I feel and I think also the fact. I mean, would you think the fact that Israel was online to maybe make a peace agreement with Saudi Arabia that they wanted to derail that as well? That's why the timing was such.
I think yes. I'm not sure 100%. Like, Hamas has its own time schedule and why exactly they want to do that. I think they saw it as the right time for them. The fact that it's the 7th of October, which is 50 years plus one day after the Yom Kippur War, maybe played a role in it. Maybe they felt like it's the right time because the Israeli society was like in this massive debate within itself about the judicial reform, and many reservists said we won't show up to reserve if you follow through with this judicial reform. Many pilots of the Israeli Air Force said that we won't continue serving if that's what you're doing. So there was like kind of like this a conflict, I would say, in the Israeli society, and Hamas and maybe the whole axis of Iran saw that as an opportunity maybe to attack Israel. Felt like they are very soft right now, that it's the right time to hit. And they just don't understand the Israeli and the Jewish culture, because they attacked, and about 48 hours later, there were already 300,000 reservists showing up. See?
Well, I would think that they would expect that to happen.
No, I didn't ask them, but I think they didn't see that coming. I think they felt, okay, they will be too weak to start like a full-scale war with us. We'll have many people abducted into Gaza, and we'll just start whatever negotiation and all that. That would be my guess, but I don't know.
Yeah. They say this is Israel's 9/11. By the way,
it's a Holocaust kind of story.
It is, but also
not in the scale, but in the atrocities. Yes,
but also the fact that it was done like a surprise attack. Mm-hmm. It came out of nowhere, and it galvanized. Look, I saw the second plane hit the World Trade Center. I was in Brooklyn, New York. I saw it, and if let's say the hijackers originated from New Jersey, I'm sure everyone in New York would just want. They wouldn't even hesitate to want to invade, or wouldn't really. I don't think people would even think about the consequences of collateral damage. But I see that there's a lot of protests going on in the world, and I don't think it's just the Arab people. I think other people, that they feel that Israel is going to create a genocide by doing what they're going to. I don't know how this is going to play out, but
no. Again, when you say genocide, then you actually refer to Israel bombing innocent civilians as they're fleeing for their life. This is not what's going to happen.
I know, but you know what's going to.
I lost you, James. But just to answer his question, the genocide aspect of it, I can do the math, but basically, if Israel is about to kill anywhere between 5,000-10,000, maybe more terrorists, the consequence for the Gazans, as they are so involved with the population, is going to be dramatic. So many people are going to be killed. The innocent civilians are going to be killed for sure. But it's I mean, I don't think it's considered to be a genocide. Again, if you target civilians deliberately, then I guess it's a genocide, but it's not the case now. Okay. James is not with us here, but I recorded this for him, and if there is any other question, then you're welcome.
Just one thought about genocide, and that is Hamas has stated in their charter that they're for genocide of the Jews of the Israel state. I mean, if anyone can be accused of genocide, it's Hamas, and not the other way around. And again, it's just the way they use their people, the way they carried out their terrorist attacks and so forth. There's no moral equivalency between the two. So I just feel that for whatever reason, and I'm sure there are reasons, people just don't understand that. I think most people do, but you always hear the loudest voice, not the majority. And even in the United States, where we have all of these campuses and different groups that are supporting Palestine, you know, the fact of the matter is that they're actually in the minority. It's like 70-30, okay? 70%, or well, I don't know if it's 70, maybe 65%, but 2/3 of the population in the United States still support Israel, even where we are right now. And less than 1/3 support Hamas, because there's always about 10% that don't know which way they want to go. So there's still a majority. It's just that they're not the loudest. They're the silent majority. So those are just a couple of thoughts based on the conversations that we were having.
Just to ask you, last week we were reading a little bit of the Hamas charter. Were you with us last? Okay.
Yes. Yes.
Cool. Okay. Yeah. So I highly recommend you to read the Hamas charter. It's just a very, very interesting document, and it's very like that's really what their agenda is all about. James, listen, I recorded my answer to you. You're muted. You're muted. You're muted, James. We can't hear
Sorry,
you.
I got disconnected.
Yeah, I know. I answered
device.
your question, so you'll be able to watch it on YouTube.
I'll do that. Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm just
absolutely.
saying that the genocide part, okay? I would say that if Israel deliberately was just about massacring innocent civilians, kind of like what Russia is doing in the Ukraine, for example, okay, that's probably falls in the category of genocide, but Israel is going to target terrorists, and if there is collateral damage, if there are civilians going to be killed or injured because of that, it's for Hamas to. You should blame Hamas for that, not.
I know,
not
but people in the Arab or Muslim world, they're not going to blame Hamas. They're always going to blame. That's the problem, and I think if
this is the world we live in, I got used to that. So I'm not saying it's right. But...
Yeah, no, it's not right, and it's a challenge. I mean, and the fact that here's another thing, the fact that the people are. I mean, I was watching this other program with this guy. His name is Ben Pesa. I don't remember his full name, but anyway, he's a follower of Meir Kahane. You know who that is, right?
Yeah.
Very right-wing guy, and he says that the Israelis provide free electricity, free fuel, free food to the Gaza, and it's like, why is that happening? Why?
I don't know if it's free, but yeah, like there are channels.
Of course,
all the channels of life are basically from Israel, and
but obviously they want to. I mean, if people in Gaza have a better standard of living, then they would be less likely to.
Who said that part?
Israel.
No, wait. Are you saying that?
No, I think the people over there, right? They want to make the population hate the Israelis going forward. And if people over there, if they had a better standard of living, and people were, like they say that the unemployment rate there is like 50% or 70%.
James, I'm stopping you for a second just to ask. You're saying that if their standard of living was higher, there won't be terror? Is that you saying or someone else?
No, they would be less likely.
No, it's okay. So this is a very serious misconception that is widespread. I've seen it in many terror groups, and not just in Israel, but throughout the world. It's not that poverty creates or generates terrorism, it's terrorism that generates poverty. See, the terror attacks creates the poverty. So in 2005, when Israel withdrew from Gaza, there was a year that the PLO ran the Gaza Strip. Then in 2006, there were elections. Hamas got the majority in the Palestinian parliament. And then a year later, because Abu Mazen, the Palestinian president, didn't want them to actually have the power, then a year later, in 2007, there was a violent coup against the Palestinian Authority in Gaza, and that's how Hamas really became the actual government in Gaza.
By the way,
2007. And then Israel blocked Gaza Strip.
Yes.
Okay, so that's
Okay.
really how things happened. It's not the other way around. See, so it's terror attacks or terror groups that creates the poverty. It's not that poverty creates the terror groups.
No, they create the poverty, but if people, what I'm saying is if people were, if the terrorists didn't do that and people were more prosperous, they wouldn't. I'll give you an example. I met an Irish guy some years ago, and he's from the Republic of Ireland, and he said, you know, if they did a vote in Ireland, like a referendum, the people in the Republic wouldn't want to incorporate Northern Ireland, have the whole island, you know, combined. Like and I said, well, wait a second. I thought for years that's what the Irish people wanted. They wanted to have the whole island, like, not divided. He says, yeah, but the problem is, the thing is now, people, it was a poor country back then, but now the standard of living here is really high, and people don't want the problems. So they figure, why, like, they're not, I guess they're like, they're not nationalistic. Anyway.
Okay.
Anyway.
Anything else, my friends? James, I hope to see you tomorrow.
Yes.
With more questions.
I wanted my son to join too. You remember we met.
Yeah.
By the way, Itamar's the best guide going. I look forward to coming back again and seeing things that I wasn't able to see during my short visit.
No
anyway,
worries.
I'm dominating the time here. I'm the only one talking. So
it's okay. But don't worry. I'm trying to have these sessions every evening, so there was enough time for Q&A from everyone. So no problem. Okay. All the best, my friends. Thank you very much for joining again. We're praying for those who are kidnapped. We're praying for our brave soldiers. And I do think this is a fight that is not just for Israel. It's a fight for the liberal world, for the Western world, a fight against evil. And the moral thing to do is to continue until Hamas is eradicated, basically. So thank you very much, and I'll see you tomorrow. I hope. I'll keep you posted on the WhatsApp group. Anything on the chat? No, it's okay. Thank you very much again.
Thank you.
This is it for now. All the best. Thank you, Justine, for joining. Bye, dear.